Well, in this episode, might get a little deep, a little rough. This is a subject you wanted to discuss, so I'm gonna give you the floor. I'm gonna let you lead the discussion.
Well, within the last couple of months, it's been on my heart because I've seen a lot of people going through what we know as grief. I've lost some people really close to me, and it's been hard. It's been difficult to get through it. I know there's different stages of grief, of course. If you don't know, of course, there's, crying, and then there's anger, and there's, bargaining, and there's, many different things and different aspects of grief that we may or may not go through. Each one of us goes through grief in our own way.
So those things that you're talking about right now, did you learn that in a book? Is it something you've known? Where did you get that information from?
I think I went through looking for it through the internet, and looking what are the stages of grief, and I'll doing the research. Not just, I think actually we might have had some books about helping people through grief. Because I know for myself, I learned about some of that stuff that you're talking about. I learned about some of it going through when my dad passed, and I went to the research because, of myself, but also those around me. So that's why I asked. Yeah, and of course, we all know that losing somebody is never only our grief that we have to navigate around. Because like you said, there was more people that are involved in it, more people that are around, and a lot of people, again, like, they will deal with their grief in their own way. Everybody has to be able to get that out and to express that in their own way. And I know that sometimes those of us that may be outside don't know, and we don't understand what that person may be going through.
But I know as ministers, we were taught, especially like back in the day when we were doing youth pastoring work, we were taught, I was given a minister's manual, and in there, you're taught how, not really taught, you're given how to give funerals and given how to do this. So we've taken courses and taken classes and read books on how to deal with grief, so I know that's part of our background, but dealing with it firsthand is very different.
Yeah, it's definitely different. You can see somebody may be at a point where they just don't want to talk. Like, they don't want to talk about anything. They don't want to say anything. And, if we go to them and we ask, how are you doing? How are you doing? They may not know how to express the feelings that they have at that moment. There's also, something that says, if you're asking them, well, how are you doing? How are you feeling right now? And maybe they just blow up and they're just angry. And that's hard for the people that are on the outside of this, or on the outside of something, because of course, everybody wants to be and give compassion to those that are hurting. And it's difficult to have to sit around and watch somebody go through something, even though you want to help them, but you don't know how. And I think in my mind is that I have to know that it's okay to grieve, it's okay to cry, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be angry, it's okay for all of those different feelings to happen, because of course if we keep them in, then it'll hold us there. Those feelings will hold us in a place where we can't get out of on our own. We can get out of it, but we don't have the ability by ourselves to say, hey, I need help. Because sometimes we don't have those words to say that we need help.
Well, I know the greatest lesson I ever learned is when we were youth pastoring. We used to get those videos from the skit guys. You know, and they had that video called The Morning Booth. You know, and it was funny. They showed different scenes. Somebody was dealing with something, probably a loss. So they were dealing with it, and he was in the morning booth, and they filmed it in a diner, and he was sitting at this booth. And throughout the whole thing, people were coming in and people cracking jokes, trying to get them out of the sadness. There were people with the Bible trying to get him to pray his way out of it. There were people in there just like didn't know what to do. And at the very end of the thing, it really got me. At the very end thing, the waitress that was pouring the coffee throughout the scene, you know, would come in, and during that, she would she just sat with him, filled his cup and just sat them and reached across and held his hand and just sat in the morning booth with him.
Right.
And I think that for me, that was the greatest thing, because it really taught me the greatest thing we could do for somebody, especially going through the morning period or going through a morning time, is just to be with them.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things that I know is that we have to be able to be in that morning booth. We have to be able to let them express what they're feeling, just so they can get it out. So they're not holding it in. They're not harboring those feelings. And so we are not stopping what needs to come out so they can feel better or to get better. Or, I mean, you know, in some ways, you know, losing somebody that's very close to us may or may not be easy. I mean, it's certainly not easy for me, and I know that it's not easy for everybody. You know, there's ways to help yourself to get out, but if you can't, then you need to ask for that help. But don't stay in it. You know, don't stay in that grief. Don't stay in there and say, oh, well, I'm still grieving over this. I'm still grieving over that. And there was this one of my favorite movies, actually. This is kind of a maybe a funny story, or it's a lighter story. This gentleman was trying to court a female, and then he was somebody else told him to buy her a gift, and he says, well, I can't, she's in mourning. And they said, oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And so, you know, well, a little bit later you'll be able to help this person, or you'll be able to give this gift to her. And he says, well, you know, her spouse died in this war. And she says, oh, I'm so sorry. And then he says, or she mentions the war, you know, okay, well, this war's been over for like 10 years. And he says, oh no, not that war, the war before that. So he gives her, you know, a different date to look at, and it's a different time. And anyway, so she was supposed to be mourning for like, I don't know, 30 years, or she's in mourning for 30 years.
As opposed to the 10.
As opposed to the 10. And she's like, oh, well, still, you can still buy her this. And, you know, and I say it's lighter, and I think because it's funny, because she was expected to take longer to mourn for her spouse. But in reality, do we really have to mourn that long for somebody? Do we want to stay in that long? 30 years to mourn for somebody. I know, I mean, in my own personal, if you were, you know, if something was to happen to you, I would mourn, but I would need to have to, you know, get on with my life, because I have so much more to live for, you know.
Well, I know for me, I told you, you know, whether you, and it's different, don't get me wrong, it's different, but it's still the same. If we were ever to separate and go our separate ways, or if we were to, or you were to die, you know, that would be it for me. Again, that would be it for me. I don't know if I could move on relationally. You know, so what is mourning? What type of mourning are you talking about? Are you talking about the mourning like in this instance that you just used, where she doesn't move on to another relationship? Or are you talking about a mourning where you just don't move on, period?
Well, I mean, we could talk about both. I mean, how are they different, honestly? Because if you're not moving on with a relationship, with a like a spousal relationship, or you're not moving on with a relationship to, let's just say, to life. If you're not able to move forward in life, if you're not able to actually say, okay, I need to go and do something different now. I mean, remembering everything that we had in the past, remembering all the good memories, all the special memories, or, all the different things and the good times that we had with those people, or those situations even that we had with any situation in life, where we've had those good memories, what kept us going through that time in our life and with those people. That's what we have to remember, and that's what we have to help or to use to help us to move forward. If we're staying back here and saying, oh, I wish that was happening, I wish this was happening, I wish we were still there, I wish we were still there, that's where your life is going to stay, is in the wishing for the past. And if we need to move forward in order to live. And I think that's what, whether a person has left, or a person has passed away, or somebody, or a new situation in life happens, or I mean we lose a lot of things. We can lose a job, we can lose different things, but we can't stay in that and remember, oh well, I'm not gonna do anything now because I don't have a good job anymore, or whatever. There's always something new that can happen. There's always something more that can happen. It may not happen the same way that it was happening back then, but it can move forward. And you will always have those memories. You will always have those special times with someone else. You will always have those ways of looking at them and looking back to them and say, well, I remember when this happened. It made me laugh so hard. We were laughing and laughing and laughing, and I loved it, and we were in such a great mood. And you can remember those times where you felt the presence of that other person, or the situation that you happen to be going through. And you can remember, and you can learn from whatever it was that maybe it was, you did something silly, and oh, well, I don't want to do that again, because, I feel like that could have gone a different way.
Right.
But there's always a place where you can sit back, relax, sit in your morning booth, and listen to, or and experience those times. Yeah, it'll be sad, and yeah, you can cry, and yeah, you can be mad. But if we sit there and we just don't, or we sit there and we just stay there, we're never going to get better, and we're never going to go forward in life.
So one of the things, excuse me, sorry about that. So, how do you move forward? I know this is fresh for you still. How? Let me rephrase the question then. How are you moving forward? Because I know for me, when my dad passed away recently, I myself had so much regrets, because and I've shared this, and hopefully when I say this, it doesn't hurt anybody's feelings, but the day of his memorial, the day of his celebration of life, one of my jobs was to go up and speak, and it was kind of sad in my mind that my brother-in-law had more memories with my father than I did. Mm-hmm. And because I was, as a kid, I was just, you think you have the rest of your life with him, so mm-hmm. I was just a knucklehead, and I had, even the one memory I did share was not a good memory. And so for a while there I struggled, and I know I pulled away, but then I realized, you know what? I had an amazing life with him. Mm-hmm. My mm-hmm. friends loved him. Mm-hmm. and so I began to move towards that mindset of knowing that, not only that he loved me, because I know he did, because mm-hmm. he took me on, and I know that he loved me, but sometimes in my heart I was like, I don't know if he knew that I loved him. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what stuck in my head, and I realized, he did. Mm-hmm. He did, and it took me. It was a hard pill to swallow to understand, because I knew I had not shown it in a way that would show that I loved him, mm-hmm. but he knew it.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's been sometimes, like recently, I've been able to, maybe write down my feelings. I've been able to kind of journal them, or, however you want to do it. And I've also, remembered some of the different things that I shared with those people. And going forward, I'm not discounting the fact that they were there. And I'm not like, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say I'm not like ignoring or forgetting. I'm not forgetting, the people that I've lost. I'm not forgetting them. And I feel like the way that I'm able to move forward is to write the things down that I went through with them. The different, different times that we spent together. Even talk about them.
Keeping the stories alive.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and not forgetting them, and not forgetting who they were to us as people, but to keep their stories and to keep them relevant to what's happening.
That's one of the things that I say too. Is I say, the way we live forever is in the stories and the lives we live with others. Because once we're gone, they still tell the stories of our times together. And again, I'm not trying to get into no theological discussion or no philosophical discussion. I'm just just a mindset that I have. Again, I'm not trying to create this whole new thing. I'm just, one of the thoughts that I had was that that we get to live forever, because I know in my heart, I know where I'm going to be eternally, and it's up to an individual to make that choice for themselves. So in no way am I trying to push that, but what I'm sharing is I'm sharing that, for me, that was the way to live through the lives of others, is the stories they tell about you, while you're living, but also when we're gone.
Yeah, and I know that sometimes when we get to that place where we are sharing those stories, or we're sharing that part of their life, it's hard and it's difficult for somebody who's just like everything, all those feelings are raw and all those feelings are right there.
Yeah, like the regret I felt.
Mm-hmm. Well, I felt regret too, because when I knew that one of my family members was very, very sick. I didn't go and I didn't see him, and I wish that I had, because I wish I could have told him other things. I wish that I could have said other things to him. And I know that we always say, tell somebody how you feel about them while they're living, and tell them how they're feeling about them while they can hear it. But there's times where, I will say, hey, I may or may not be able to tell you now, but, I love you. I loved you so much, and I wish that I had been there with you, or, whatever there might be. And that can be a way of getting out of that regret and moving forward from the regret that we feel. And, regret is never a positive thing to have, because if we continue to stay in it, again, it's always going to keep us from moving forward and from healing in ourselves.
Well, I know one of the things too that's very important as well is, for me, that I've understood over the years, is surrounding yourself. I think sometimes we go through the grieving process, and we feel at times that we have to go alone. We have to battle it alone sometimes, and we isolate ourselves, and we segregate ourselves, which I kind of did. When my dad died, I pulled away, and I realized there were people that needed me. There were people that needed me to be strong. There were people that needed me to be there, and I wasn't. And there were, later on, there were some hurt feelings by it, and I know I felt it. We had discussions about it, and I had to realize, I got to get out of this. I got to be around. I got to make myself present. And so I think, for me, one of the things that I've learned is not to isolate. To surround yourselves. I think that was one of the beautiful things that I have heard from an individual, that when their spouse died, that they were able to live with their daughter for a while, and just being there was comforting because they didn't feel like they can be at a certain place anymore because it was just filled with the memories. And again, at the same time, you know, it made me think about, shoot, I did the complete opposite. I ran, you know, and I went and I hid in the mountains basically. And so I guess I've just learned that, you know, that's another part of it as well, is not isolating ourselves, not bottling up the feelings, not hiding away, not hiding from the fact that this major thing happened to you, this major loss happened to you.
Right.
I mean, because reality, think about it, just with me and you, we have had several just in this past year that have passed away.
Yeah.
In just a year's time, we've lost so many people.
Yeah.
You know, and more recently, we've lost so many within a month's time.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's that kind of layering effect. You know, you're not even given time to grieve for the one, and now you have to deal with the other one.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I like what you thought about that. You can't isolate yourself, because if we're doing too much of the isolation, we forget that there's other people that are also going through that same grief, and isolating ourselves away from other people are going to keep us from being able to help the other person. And you know, like you have so many different people and so many different pieces to the puzzle of the people who are around that one specific person that may have gone. And you've got family, you've got friends, you've got so many different things. But if you're isolating yourself from any of those people, how can they heal? How can they start to, move away from being in despair? How can they move, and how can you move at the same time? You know what I mean? So I think honestly that, you know, I just felt it in my heart, especially with, you know, so many things that were going on with us. And like you said, within the last month, that I've been just wanting to be able to, sometimes getting out and getting those feelings out is something that somebody just needs in their time. And they just need to say, it's okay. We're going to be okay.
I think this is a topic that needs much attention than what this episode can contain. You know, I think one of the biggest things is both of us, I think we want to share with you guys is face it. It's hard. Face it. You know, and one of the other things I think we should hope for is just don't isolate yourself. Surround yourself with people that love you and care for you and can pour into you. And one of the greatest things I guess I can leave us with today is reach out. Reach out. And again, thank you for tuning in today. As I always say, you know, be blessed, y'all.